Your seats. So, Jean, please secure the doors. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. President.
All right, this morning we are pleased to be virtually joined by the Reverend Clarence Heath of the Apostolic Tabernacle of Pocomoke City, Poconoke, Maryland, guest of the distinguished senator from District 38. Members, please rise.
Chapter number 8, verse 4 says, "What is man that you would even consider him?" The psalmist poses the question, but he goes on to answer the question himself. Man is the crowning glory of creation. He has been given dominion, power, glory, and honor. Man has also been given access to the throne room of God. Today, we will take that access and we will use it to come against the dominions and the works of darkness and principalities in the name of the Lord. We ask for direction and guidance to be granted to our leaders, that they would be yielded to you and you alone, Lord. Grant them wisdom, knowledge, and understanding for the decisions that they will have to make. Keep them in the safety of your hand. We ask for your providence, not only for our state, but also for our nation. As we have trusted in thee in the past, we commit our trust once again unto thee. Our hope, our help, and our life is yours, Lord. We thank you and we give honor to you. We ask that you would do these things in the name of the Lord. Amen.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 38th District.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is my first time as a senator to have a reverend from my district give the Senate prayer. And it is most fitting that Reverend Clarence Heath, pastor at Apostolic Tabernacle in Pocomoke City, would be with us today. When I first met Reverend Heath in Somerset County on November 21st, 2017, he gave me this traveling Bible. And I remain grateful for his continued prayers and for his prayers for all of us today. Mr. President, I ask that Reverend Clarence Heath's prayer be journalized.
Without objection, we will most certainly journalize the Reverend's prayer. Senator, I think the 15 years worth of Catholic school teachers are rolling at not being able to, having not been able to pronounce apostolic. I was struggling there, and I'm sure my mother is very disappointed in me. So without objection, so ordered. Let's see. Do we have everybody? Has everybody recorded their presence in the chamber? Senator from Howard and Baltimore counties. Excellent. All right. The clerk will take the call. With 44 members in the chamber and a quorum being present, the Senate of Maryland is now in session. All right. We have a busy day today. We have a lot of work to get through. But let's go ahead and see. Do we have any announcements before we jump in? Updates? Score reports? Nope. All right. Looks like we're ready to work. All right. So be considered the reading of the journal from the prior legislative day. Let's go ahead and start with new bills. We had, looks like a total now of 926, I believe is our final count. Which is about 50 or so less than where we were this time last year. So we've got a fair number of bills that were dropped, so thank you, senators, for getting these in by the time of the Hopper deadline. We want to thank as well the Secretary of the Senate's office and all of our DLS bill drafting teams for getting this remarkable amount of work in under these very, very extraordinary conditions. The clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 788, Senator Hester, Economic Development, Small Business Financing, Loan Loss Reserve, Maryland Capital Access Program, Finance, and B&T.
Majority Leader moves so be considered the reading of the bills. Do we want to read each calendar, or can we? All right, we have several calendars, so clerk will read the next calendar.
Senate Bill 838, Senator Reedy, Election Law, Polling Places, Proof of Identity, EHE.
Majority Leader moves so be considered the reading of the bills. Clerk will read the first bill, calendar number 23.
Senate Bill 889, Senator Jennings, Controlled Hazardous Substance Facility Permit, Research Facilities, Chemical Warfare Material Requirements, EHE.
Majority Leader moves so be considered the reading of the bills. All right, so that is official. We are now at 9:26. Let's go next to the legislative bond initiatives. The deadline for bond, what is the calendar date? March 9th. March 8th. So, Senators, March 8th is the deadline for LBIs. So the policy bills are all, deadline is passed. They will all be going to rules. We now have several calendars for bond initiatives. So let's go ahead and read the first bond initiative, calendar number 7.
Senator West, Towson Armory Building, B&T.
Majority Leader moves so be considered the reading of the bills. Clerk will read the next calendar.
Senator Hershey, Greensboro Elementary School, Judy Hoyer Early Learning Center.
Majority Leader moves so be considered the reading of the calendar. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senator Castley, IWLA Conservation and Education Center.
Majority Leader moves so be considered the reading of the bills. Clerk will read the next calendar.
Senator Carter, Social Settlement House.
Majority Leader moves so be considered the reading of the bills. Clerk will read the next calendar.
Senator Jackson, Melwood Horticulture Training Facilities.
Majority Leader moves so be considered the reading of the bills. Clerk will read the next calendar.
Senator Smith, Progress Plaza Gazebo.
Majority Leader moves so be considered the reading of the bills. Clerk will read the last bond initiative, calendar number 13.
Senator Augustine, United Communities Against Poverty.
Majority Leader moves so be considered the reading of the legislative bond initiatives. All right, thank you, Senators, for getting all of those in. We have one reassignment, which after the number of bills that we received, just one reassignment we're in a good spot. Clerk will read the announcement.
In accordance with Rule 33D, the following legislation has been reassigned as indicated below. Senate Bill 905, Senator Signor, Juvenile Services, Work Group to develop evidence-based, research-based, and culturally competent practices, reassigned to judicial proceedings.
All right, the announcement is read. All right, are we waiting on any last test results here? We are. Okay. Well, let's see what we can dispose of. I think we should be all right. Let's jump into the special order calendar number 6, Senators. This is the veto override calendar. These were the bills that were special ordered previously to today. So these are the remainder of the Senate bills. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 184, Senator Lamb, University of Maryland, Baltimore, study on the health effects of air traffic noise.
All right. Chair recognizes the senator from Howard and Baltimore counties.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to special order this bill to the last day of session, to sine die. The department is still working on this. We'd like to at least keep this on the agenda for discussion, but hopefully we're going to see progress on this continue to move forward over the next 2 months. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. The senator has moved to special order the bill to the appropriate time on sine die. Any discussion? No discussion. All in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The bill will be special ordered to the appropriate time on sine die. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 208, Senator Lee, Public Safety, Rifles and Shotguns, Sales, Rentals, and Transfers.
All right, Senators, Senate Bill 208. The question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass notwithstanding the objections of the Chief Executive? A green vote will override the governor's veto. A nay vote will sustain the governor's veto. Any discussion?
Mr. President.
Yes, Chair recognizes the Minority Whip.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I would like to speak in favor of sustaining the governor's veto on this. The legislation in front of you deals with additional restrictions on the private transfer of long guns. These are shotguns, these are rifles. Over the last 5 years, there hasn't been a person that has come in front of the committee and testified, despite being asked multiple times. There hasn't been data, and I have dug and dug and dug, of one homicide as a result of a person-to-person sale of a long gun. Now, here we have this bill in front of us that puts more restrictions on law-abiding people, sportsmen and sportswomen, who hunters, farmers, trap shooters, who often engage in person-to-person sales of long guns and rifles. And we have this bill in front of us further regulating them, further punishing them, despite a total lack of data of why we need this bill. Yet, while this bill is in front of us, the General Assembly last year failed to enact legislation dealing with handguns and the illegal use and sale of handguns, which data does show results in the vast majority of homicides in this state. In fact, in 2019, from the state police, when they kept the last data, 462 homicides were committed with a handgun in 2019 alone. 309 people were killed in Baltimore City alone in 2019, and another 298 in 2020 by a handgun. That's just in our largest municipality. In 2019, Maryland law enforcement agencies entered 974 stolen firearms into the National Criminal Information System. Illegal handguns and the use of them is the problem. Not taking repeat violent offenders off the streets is the problem. 81.4% of the homicide suspects in Baltimore City had prior records. 44% of those people had previous arrests for gun charges. In 2018, in Senate Judicial Proceedings Committee, we asked then Baltimore City Police Commissioner Darrell DeSouza how many homicides have been committed in the city by lawfully obtained firearms. The commissioner responded, quote, "None that I'm aware of." Again, over the last 5 years, there is no data to show that there is a single homicide as a result of a person-to-person transfer. But yet we have this bill in front of us. And I would just say this, as I've said many times on this body. Unfortunately, with gun laws, we constantly go after, we punish and re-regulate law-abiding citizens. People who are sportsmen, people who are hunters, people who are using them the right way. And that's what this legislation seeks to do. This legislation doesn't go after, the General Assembly did nothing, we passed nothing to address the epidemic of the illegal use of handguns by repeat violent offenders that is taking our citizens' lives almost every day. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes the floor leader on the bill, the chair of the Judicial Proceedings Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. So just to set a little bit of the context, so obviously we've got regulated firearms and unregulated firearms. So your handguns, regulated firearms, you've got to go through a background check. Right now in Maryland, we have a regime and a system in which if I want to give you my long gun, my shotgun, I can do so without ever having gone through any sort of a background check or any sort of pre-clearance procedure. That's what this bill seeks to do. This is a well thought out, well conceived, and measured, balanced approach to that end. Now look, we've taken several years in the Judicial Proceedings Committee to produce this product. Essentially, what this bill will do is allow for the sale of your long gun through a FFL. You've got to go through a NICS background check. Temporary exchanges, temporary and gratuitous exchanges. So if I want to go hunting, if you want to lend it to your neighbor, you don't have to go through a background check. If you want to will your firearm, your long gun, to your neighbor, to your family member, no background check required. If you want to give it to a family member, to include your grandparents, no background check required. But what this does do is take that critical first step in ensuring that every time a firearm transfers from one person to another, there's a simple background check. Look, an FFL, a federally licensed firearm dealer, every mail-under is within 10 miles of an FFL. You can't be charged more than $30 for the process. The background check on average takes 3 minutes. This is not something that is a far-out, farcical measure. This is something simple, commonplace to protect Marylanders. Now, one other thing I'll just say is that I do agree with the Senator about that we do need to do something about gun violence in Maryland and throughout the nation. But unfortunately, we have porous borders, and that begs for a federal solution. So if the Senator wants to work on Capitol Hill for a federal solution, I'm all for it. But with that, Mr. President, I'd vote to override this veto. I encourage our colleagues to do the same.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes Senator from District 5.
Thank you, Mr. President. You know, violent crime, as we've heard, which is caused primarily by illegal handguns operated by people who are typically having criminal records already and shouldn't have them, is certainly a problem in our state as it relates to gun violence. You know, I've met with groups that support this bill and support bills like this, and they say that their motivation for supporting this legislation is they're worried about guns. They're worried about guns being in the hands of people, and they're afraid of gun violence, and they want to stop gun violence. And yet, when I ask representatives of those same groups to join me in supporting legislation to really crack down on people who repeatedly use guns in the commission of violent crimes, or to even do something like make it a felony to steal a handgun, those groups say to me, well, we don't want to criminalize people. But that's exactly what this legislation is doing. This legislation is criminalizing people for doing a practice that's gone on for over 300 years in this state. Typically transferring a long gun to somebody who quite often you know who they are, not always, but quite often. And I know the answer to that is, well, occasionally they might be, if it saves just one life. Well, I would argue that locking somebody up for the rest of their life if they commit a second crime with a gun, a crime of violence with a gun, that would probably save a lot more lives. But most people in this chamber would think that was outrageous. But this bill is literally criminalizing people who just want to transfer a long gun, a hunting rifle, to a friend or to somebody they may know in town that wants to buy their rifle. Incidentally, you can't buy a firearm over the internet like this and have it sent to you without it being a background check. So I know oftentimes that's used as one of the examples, but this is literally people who generally know each other or live in the same community, meeting and selling each other a rifle, a hunting rifle, that again is almost never used in crimes. There's a button in my office that was given to me by a very faithful advocate who advocates on behalf of Second Amendment rights and rights of hunters and rights of folks to own firearms, law-abiding citizens. And the button says, go after the bad guys for a change. But this General Assembly, we failed to do that. Now, our Senate did pass a good bill last year that did not pass the House. And I hope we can get that through this year. But this bill is not going to make any impact on gun violence, on violent crime. It's not going to make anybody safer. We should go after the bad guys for a change, and we should sustain the governor's veto. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes the senator from the 34th District.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I rise in support of the governor's veto for a very simple reason. I find this bill a blatant affront to the Constitution. People have, under the U.S. Constitution, it's a fundamental right to own a firearm. And when this body restricts that right, it ought to do so with at least some measurable objective in mind that would in some way justify this intrusion upon a fundamental right. And with all due respect to the chairman, this is not a minor intrusion. This is a substantial intrusion for most folks on their ability, their constitutional right. And we need to justify such an intrusion with some evidence, something to show that this is a necessary intrusion. But as my good friend, the minority whip, spoke earlier, we've seen nothing. We've seen no evidence really at all. I mean, a couple of cases doesn't justify a major intrusion upon a fundamental constitutional right. It's unconstitutional. I ask you to vote with me to sustain the governor's veto. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes the senator from the 38th District.
Thank you, Mr. President. I too rise in support of sustaining the governor's veto. I also have taken the time to meet with passionate Second Amendment rights advocates as well as passionate Moms Demand Action and others. I simply do not believe that this legislation is the most effective approach to reducing gun violence and increasing public safety. We've heard from our other colleagues that there have been other measures that this chamber supported, the governor's anti-crime package that passed the Senate and got hung up in the House. That would be a more effective approach. I just want to note that Jamie Wink, who has a family sporting and hunting shop in my district in Princess Anne, he points out that this is an attempt to solve a problem that simply does not exist and that it's unenforceable. Firearms are only traceable to their first point of sale. Therefore, a gun that has been sold multiple times by a federal firearms license or individual has no way of being traced. Therefore, there won't be a way to convict anyone unless they were caught in the act of selling it. I also wanted to point out I did hear from some of our law enforcement locally, and the sheriff from Worcester County pointed out, I am well aware of the need to protect our citizens through laws and regulations to prevent violent crimes. However, I feel there are enough regulatory gun laws in place to achieve that goal. So for these reasons, my colleagues, I'm asking you to sustain the governor's veto. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Are there any senators who have not yet spoken who wish to speak? Just a brief administrative reminder, please remember to hit the push to speak blue button, just given the visuals. Yes, Chair recognizes the Minority Leader.
Thank you. Just in summary, what we've heard is that there's no data saying a single life is lost in Maryland due to illegally obtained long guns. And this bill targets law-abiding citizens while neglecting our criminals in our state. It's unconstitutional, and there's more effective matters of getting crime such as the governor's package. So for all those reasons, I urge that we support the governor's veto. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator, and apologies to the bill sponsor. The reflection in this angle, I could not see the senator standing. So Chair recognizes the bill sponsor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to say something about this bill. I think this is a very good bill, and we should support the veto override. This bill closes a huge loophole and keeps domestic abusers, violent criminals with dangerous histories from going around the law and purchasing these guns, getting these guns from private sellers at gun shows or online. This bill will prevent those violent individuals from getting these guns to commit things like murder, mayhem, serious injury, crimes against law-abiding citizens. It protects a private seller, too, from liability and exempts immediate family members, law enforcement, military members, or if it's a museum or curio piece, and those with religious beliefs who are not allowed to take photographs of themselves. We made amendments to accommodate those with religious beliefs last year. It's not too much of a high cost when it comes to preventing gun violence and saving lives. The CDC indicates that gun deaths cost Maryland about $804.3 million in healthcare expenses, work loss, and funeral costs. It is the loss of a husband, a wife, a breadwinner, a parent, a son, daughter, a sibling, or friend, even if the victim doesn't lose their life, but is seriously injured. There are high costs of medical care, rehabilitation, recovery, mental health care costs, loss of jobs, and families who are devastated because they have to commit to a lifetime of care for the victim. And as the chairman of JPR indicated, it's not a huge burden to get those tests. It's very easy. So I urge my esteemed colleagues, please vote to override this veto. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Apologies again for not seeing you stand earlier. Chair recognizes the senator from the 32nd District.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm supporting this bill because of the 5 employees of the Capitol Gazette that were killed by a long gun. We need to do more to do background checks. He would have not been allowed to buy the gun had we done the check that was needed, and I support the bill in honor of those 5 deaths. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Are there any senators yet to speak who have not yet spoken? If not, the question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass, notwithstanding the objections of the Chief Executive? A yea vote, green vote, overrides the governor's veto. A nay vote, red vote, sustains the governor's veto. The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Would anyone like to explain their vote?
Mr. President?
Yes, Chair recognizes
Just like to
Minority
explain
Leader.
my vote. And for the record, just to clarify, the terrible shooting in Annapolis, that was a private transfer. That wasn't a person-to-person transfer that we're talking about in this. So as I stated before, within 5 years, there hasn't been a crime via person-to-person sale.
Thank you, Senator. Would any senators wish to explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 31 votes in the affirmative, the governor's veto is overridden. The clerk will read the message.
Message to the House of Delegates by the Majority Leader. Ladies and gentlemen of the House of Delegates, the Senate today, notwithstanding the objections of the governor, voted to override the veto on Senate Bill 208. Said bill is sent to you for your consideration by order Nicole M. Alexander.
The message having been read is now adopted. The clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 300, Senator Lamb, pesticides, use of chlorpyrifos prohibition.
The question before the Senate, shall the bill pass notwithstanding the objections of the Chief Executive? Chair recognizes the Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would move to postpone this bill indefinitely.
The Majority Leader has moved to postpone the bill indefinitely. This is a non-debatable motion. Question before the body is, shall the bill be postponed indefinitely? All in favor of the motion say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The bill is postponed indefinitely. The clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 314, Senator Signor, juveniles charged as adults, confidentiality of records.
Senate Bill 314. The question is, shall the bill pass notwithstanding the objections of the Chief Executive? A green vote will override the governor's veto. A red vote will sustain. Any discussion? Chair recognizes Senator from the 34th District.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, imagine an elderly woman, grandmother, and her granddaughter walking home from the grocery store just around dusk. As they come around the corner into a less lighted street, they're accosted by a group of 17-year-olds who severely beat them, rob them, smash their groceries, dump them both in a dumpster, and take off. Unbeknownst to these two, they're actually the third set of victims of these hoodlums in the past month, but they were unaware. They were unaware of the prior instances. Their families are outraged. They're outraged. They want justice. They want to know, where were the police? Where were the prosecutors? Where's the juvenile justice system? What happened to everybody? They wait for the news report to come out. It's silent. Just like the other three that happened before them, this one's silent again. The community's unaware of this violence. As the young person and her grandmother, now suffering from PTSD, scarred for life, forever afraid to go back out and walk in the town they love, marred. You start to look and you're trying to understand, how could the media be so callous? How could they not care about my loved ones? Then you find out there is no police record. There is no court record. The media is not at fault. They couldn't possibly know about this because this incident, like the other three, was never reported in the public record. It's secret. Colleagues, the immense public safety risk of adopting such a hide-the-facts approach to juvenile justice were tragically exposed nationally in the various school shooting cases, where we saw that the authorities were unaware of certain violent proclivities. Denying information to the folks who need to know it is wrong. It's very wrong. And too often, it's tragically wrong. Quite frankly, I find it disheartening that the lessons learned from these terrible tragedies throughout our nation will be so quickly forgotten by public policymakers in our very state. Senate Bill 314 unwisely reverses important public policies. It puts the interests of violent juvenile offenders above the safety of unsuspecting public. Our citizens' timely knowledge of violent crimes in their communities is vital to their public safety. The public needs to know when and how public safety is threatened and whether there has been an appropriate response by police, schools, prosecutors, and the courts. This is especially true when the risk of hiding violent crime falls so heavily upon our innocent children. Colleagues, this bill is wrong. It's wrong. We should not hide from parents, from school administrators, when we have folks committing violent crimes. We've always supported a public policy of not putting young people in the newspaper for nonviolent crimes, giving them a second chance. But to say that their interest when they commit violent crimes and beat people transcend the interest of the public in knowing what the heck is happening in their community is ludicrous. I would ask that you stand with me and support the governor's veto of this very, very bad bill. Thank you.
Chair recognizes the floor leader on the bill, Senator from Baltimore City and County.
Thank you, Mr. President. As I listened to my colleagues' speeches to why we should sustain the governor's veto, I look back at some of my testimony from last year. For those of you who don't know, this particular bill has been in the making for a few years. When I was over in the House, in fact, I worked with my Republican colleagues to ensure that many of the things that my colleague pointed out were addressed. This particular bill does nothing to make the public less safe than what it is. This bill, in listening to the comments that have been made, one would think that there was some sort of an attack on the First Amendment prohibiting the media from publishing occurrences that have happened within this state. That is not what this bill does. In fact, the media did not come out in opposition to this bill. In fact, the Maryland chiefs and sheriffs supported this bill with amendments that were incorporated into this bill. The only opposition to this bill last year were from state's attorneys that for whatever reason, essentially, well, they argue what my colleague had just argued. But I would like to explain to you what this bill does. I would like to explain to you why this bill was put forth. This bill was put forth because I was tired of turning on my television and seeing youth who had committed some crimes, pictures being plastered all over the news. The fact of the matter is, in this day and age, once your photo is out there, it's out there. State law, Maryland state law, says that the juvenile justice system was created to provide for the care, protection, and wholesome mental and physical development consistent with a child's best interest and the protection of the public interest. What this bill does is it supports that particular policy statement that's within our law. See, there was a hole. There was a hole in our law so that if you as a child, and that's the language in the law, we're talking about children. If you are a child and you committed one of 16 enumerated offenses, our state law would automatically treat you like a grown person, an adult. I have some problems with that, but that's not what this bill is about. This bill is about filling a gap. So what happens if you're charged with one of these 16 enumerated offenses? As I said, you're in the adult system. Now you have an opportunity to go before the court for this thing called a waiver hearing. Now at that waiver hearing, a judge, after listening to all of the facts, gets to decide whether or not you will be waived down into the juvenile court or whether or not you'll be treated as an adult. What this bill does is it says, you know what, we're going to wait until you have that waiver hearing. All right? We're going to wait. Once you have that waiver hearing, if we have decided that we're going to treat you as an adult, guess what? All of this information comes out. Nothing is hidden from the public. Your photo will be released. Your records released. You're treated as an adult. But what this bill also does is it ensures that if the court has the reason to make certain that you're going to be treated as a juvenile, it protects you like any other child. What's wrong with that? I don't see anything wrong with that. How do you perpetuate crime? You limit people's opportunities. Once these photos of these youth are out there, their opportunities are limited. How many of you don't know who Kyle Rittenhouse is? Face all over the country. You think if he had an opportunity, do you think if he had an opportunity to be rehabilitated, that folk won't look at him in ways that maybe he should or shouldn't be looked at? The opportunities will be limited. Colleagues, a vote for overriding this veto is a vote about opportunity and fairness. I'll be voting to override this veto, and I'm asking you to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Please remind the body, please keep your attention on the senator who is speaking. Are there any senators who wish to speak who have not yet spoken? If not, Chair recognizes the senator from the 34th District.
Thank you, Mr. Colleagues. Those 16 offenses we're talking about, colleagues, those are things like armed carjacking, robbery, beating people severely. They're not the, simple car theft, loitering, the kind of offenses we normally associate with juveniles having anonymity. As for the idea that this bill is really just to provide kids with anonymity, if that was really the goal of this bill, if that was truly the goal of what we're trying to do here, it would have been very easy to say, well, we're not going to release the photographs and we won't release the names of the alleged offender. We didn't do that. We hid the whole crime. You won't even know that old Mrs. Jones was beaten a block from your house last night because it didn't happen. The press can't find any notice of it. It just didn't even happen. You want to provide juveniles with anonymity? That's easily enough done. No attempt to do that. Colleagues, what happens in these waivers? Here's the problem we're going through right now. This is the travesty of what we're going through with juvenile justice right now. There is no justice. There's no justice in the juvenile justice system. In many counties, many jurisdictions, virtually everyone gets waived is kept in the juvenile system. The most violent are charged as adults, but far too many of them end up permanently in the juvenile system. So we never know about that. I hear from folks who work in the system who say, 10 years ago, everybody in the room, when they came in, it was car theft, simple thefts, things like that. Now you got people coming in that system who've been jacking people up, putting pistols to their face, stealing their cars and the like. That's not juvenile crime. You ruin lives. You can't put a pistol in somebody's face and shove it in their mouth and steal their car and not have you just destroyed their life. That person's life, I don't care how old the perpetrator was, the person who you just jacked up, they've now lost self-confidence, self-esteem. They'll never walk around again. Probably affect their marriage, their personal relationships, maybe even their employment. Oh, but it's just a kid, so who cares? Colleagues, we're killing people. There's innocent children out there who deserve to know these facts. And the more we hide the ball, the more we hide the facts, the more of them. They're the ones that bear the impact of this. That's who's suffering here. It's the little kids in the neighborhoods. Because when these folks are released and they come back in the neighborhood, the kids see them. Everybody knows that. They go around unleashing their violence, their death, their destruction in their own neighborhoods. Hope you'll join me in sustaining the governor's very wise veto. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes the senator from District 10.
Colleagues,
A child is a child. Some of them are born into terrible circumstances, lack of equality, lack of opportunity, lack of good parenting, lack of good schools, lack of social services. Some of them have psychosocial problems, as do some adults. When a child commits a terrible crime, according to the U.S. Supreme Court, and things like Graham v. Florida and so on, they recognize at that level that they are neurologically not at the place where an adult is in terms of psychosocial ability to control impulses and to understand in advance the harm of some of their actions. No child who is well loved, who has the mental health services that they need, and who has the social services that ought to be available to a child in terrible straits with nothing. I think of some of the children today where parents are essential workers, where the child is told, well, you're working virtually for schooling at your home. A home that's sometimes full of people from multi-generations, some members of extended families no longer with a job, no one to help them, no 5G or broadband in their community. That's true in northern Baltimore County, where they aren't that bad off, but on the eastern shore and on many blocks in Baltimore City. You've got kids this very year who are going to commit some crimes because the pandemic has left them without the care and the support that they need as a child. You've got probably 9-year-olds taking care of the infant because the mother is an essential worker and the grandmother is too old to help. When a child commits a terrible crime, according to at least 3 different Supreme Court rulings that I have read, we ought to remember first of all that they are not miniature adults. I'm glad that our colleague from District 44 explained the necessity under circumstances and the opportunities that are available to the justice system through the waiver hearing. If there are thousands of them, they aren't too many. We don't have any throwaway people. God has created us all. We aren't all born into equal circumstances. We aren't all born with fuzzy-wuzzy toys to play with or with 3 meals a day. We aren't all born to people who have themselves had opportunity and can afford to stay at home if they are essential workers. When we have circumstances that lead a child to commit a crime, it is horrible for everybody, including for the victim. But we must remember they aren't throwaway people. Let's honor the waiver hearings. If you think the judges are doing too many of them, then go sit in the courtrooms and listen while the waiver hearings are going on. You might learn something. Let's not be so quick to throw away people. Obviously, if any of us were charged with a crime and people plastered our pictures or our names all over the media, the rest of our lives would be impacted by that. And it doesn't make sense for us to spend unnecessary tax dollars for kids to be locked up rather than to be served with psychosocial services and with other opportunities that would foster humanity. There are people who have committed terrible crimes, who have been redeemed, and who have come out of the justice system to do good things. I'm going to shut up in a minute, but I'm thinking of a child that I'm remembering, whose mother was a social worker in Baltimore City, father a medical doctor. This kid lived down the block from us, And at 7 years old, who had been a normal, rambunctious, very smart kid, became witness to a crime. Someone broke into their house in the middle of the night, shot their dog, tied up the father, raped the mother. That child is today sitting in the penitentiary here. He was never the same. All of the rest of his whole family were model citizens. But what he witnessed left him, and he did a crime. In prison, James Priest has earned a college degree. He's been recommended for parole for many times. But as a juvenile, he's been locked up for what's going on probably 35 years or more. And he probably will die there because some of us don't understand that children are not miniature adults, that they deserve another chance. They deserve social services. They deserve care. They deserve to become taxpayers. I won't say more, but let's remember the waiver hearings. It isn't a negative, it's a positive, and we need to save our children. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes the chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll be very, very quick. I just don't want kind of the simple to be translated into the complex amidst the debate. This bill simply allows for, if a juvenile is charged with a crime that it's not necessarily within the jurisdiction of the juvenile courts, essentially to say, look, we're going to hold off in disclosing those records until a judge makes a determination that you indeed belong in that higher, more serious court, adult court, and not reserved for the juvenile system. So you're still going to have access to those records when a judge makes that determination and move forward and charge that person as an adult. It doesn't prohibit us from seeing those most dangerous, most violent offenders' records. So just want to make sure that it's a very simple explanation, and the chairwoman is correct. It could have a detrimental effect on the future of someone that doesn't ultimately end up getting charged as an adult. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. All right, the question before the Senate is, shall Senate Bill 314 pass, notwithstanding the objections of the Chief Executive? Are there any other senators who have not yet spoken who wish to speak? If not, the chair recognizes the senator from the 34th District.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just in response to the chairman's note there, it won't prevent you from seeing this records if, there's a big if here, if the judge decides that the juvenile will in fact be tried as an adult. But if, as we see right now throughout the juvenile system, that's not happening, that they're all being pushed down, kept in the juvenile court, those records will never become public. And you won't even know about these violent acts in your community. You'll have no knowledge. As long as they keep forcing these kids, these young people, dare I say thugs in many of these cases, as long as they keep pushing these thugs back into your communities, you'll never know it. Thank you.
All right, question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass, notwithstanding the objections of the Chief Executive? A green vote shall override the senator's veto. The red vote will sustain the veto. Any further discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 31 votes in the affirmative, the Chief Executive's veto is overridden. The clerk will read the message.
Message to the House of Delegates by the Majority Leader. Ladies and gentlemen of the House of Delegates, the Senate today, notwithstanding the objections of the Governor, voted to override the veto on Senate Bill 314. Said bill is sent to you for your consideration by order Nicole M. Alexander.
Message having been read is now adopted. The clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 684, Senator Washington, Correctional Services, Pre-Release Unit for Women, Facilities and Services, Gender Responsive Pre-Release Act.
All right, the question before the Senate is, shall Senate Bill 684 pass, notwithstanding the objections of the Chief Executive? Chair recognizes the Minority Whip.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And we've had obviously a very spirited debate on the issue of crime. But I don't think we should forget that this body has actually come together on this issue over the last couple of years. And probably the best example is when we did the Justice Reinvestment Act. And the principle and the idea behind that was, the instruction we were given by then Senate President Mike Miller was to figure out how we could close prisons. not be in the business of building new prisons, not be constructing them, that we could take the savings from incarcerating people and we could use them for education, we could use them for transportation, and actually the act said that we had to reinvest them in helping not only the victims, but also helping those who've been incarcerated, providing them with services, education, getting them back in the community. So we crafted a bill which it did leave, and it did actually put some more of the violent people in, but it took a lot of the sentences for nonviolent offenders, and it took a number of people who were in prison for nonviolent drug offenses and moved them back into the prison or into the communities, put them under community supervision. And we have been dramatically decreasing the number of people in prison. It's been a big success in this state since we did that. And I bring this up because this bill, while well-intentioned, moves us in the opposite direction. This bill has us building a new prison again. And the irony is that the governor actually, since COVID, went much further than we went under the Justice Reinvestment Act, in that they began to release more nonviolent offenders. And what that means is they were people serving in state facilities, and they moved them back. They could be in the community, be under supervision there, they could be on house arrest, they could be in halfway houses, but they were not warehoused in these state facilities. And the largest number of those, from March 1st to December 31st, 3,135 women have been released from department facilities. This has resulted in overall 27% reduction in women held in Department of Public Safety's custody. Women make up 3.9% of the population, but they've been 20% of the releases, because most of them were nonviolent offenders. They had a larger population of nonviolent offenders. And so right now, over the next 2 years, there's about 100 women that are scheduled to be released. Without this legislation, the plan would be the same as the men. By the way, on June 30th, there'll be no more men warehoused in these facilities anymore either. Then June 30th, after that, the plan for the department is they all will be back into their communities, in halfway houses, local jails where they can be closer to their families, closer to get jobs, to get services. They'll be on home arrest. That's the plan. But when we override this, one group of people will be warehoused in a new facility. Women. Because the men and everyone else will be back in their communities, but this legislation dictates that we build a brand new pre-release facility in the state. So while we've gotten out of the business of building new prisons, this puts us backwards. This turns us backwards on the progress. And now, it's very well intentioned. Parts of this legislation calling for equal services and better services for women, that's good. The problem is it demands that we build this pre-release facility. So you're looking at, to rehab one of the current facilities in Baltimore is $15 to $20 million. To build a new facility is anywhere over $55 million. That's money that we could be putting back into our communities, into schools, and everything else as we would have done in Justice Reinvestment. But also, it's bad for the inmates. Over the next 2 years, there's about 100. The legislation dictates that we build the facility where the most inmates are from, and roughly a quarter from the city of Baltimore. That means 75% of the other inmates, instead of being returned to their home facilities and being on home arrest or in a halfway house or being in Montgomery County, Frederick County, Allegheny County, Prince George's County, being close to their family, close to the jobs, and doing reentry that way, they will all be warehoused in Baltimore. They will be all warehoused to one facility. And the legislation, and it came out of judicial proceedings, we don't do this. We don't build facilities. That's budget and tax. That's the capital budget chairman, and they all do this stuff. And so when we do this, we're going back to an old model of warehousing people in one central facility, instead of doing the model of what the Justice Reinvestment and everything else did, was releasing nonviolent offenders and getting them back in their communities. I think this is a complete step backwards, and quite frankly, this is an opposition as a minority party to be on here arguing that we shouldn't be building new prisons. I don't know why we're doing this. I really don't. And lastly, the last thing I'll say with the bill, to show you the problems with the text of the bill actually demands that it's via zip code. So if 2 years from now, Prince George's County or Montgomery County or Western Maryland has the most inmates, you got to build a new women's prison in Western Maryland. So I think this turns us backwards. This puts Maryland in the place of building new prisons, which we had gotten out of that business. This is very wrong-headed, and I think we should sustain the veto.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes the floor leader, Chair of the Judicial Proceedings Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I stand in support of overriding the veto because the bill has two core components, and they both address the inequities that have been present in our criminal justice system and in our correctional facilities for generations here in Maryland. And the first one, obviously, has been discussed, is the construction of this new facility that would render services and would provide services and a place for the reintegration and reentry of our women that are currently incarcerated. The second piece talks to the development of comprehensive rehabilitative services, evidence-based programs, wraparound services, arming these women for reentry, for job placement, for roles as parents, to be productive members of society. Now, today in Maryland, there were 5 such pre-relief centers for men, and the last one for women was closed in 2009. And although our prison population has gone down steadily in the last couple of years, the rate of women has actually risen. And so too have the services for women vice male prisoners. So what this bill does is attempts to kind of bridge that gap. And I'll speak a little bit to the services and the need for that, and I'll let the chairman of the capital budget speak to the actual construction of the facility and the funding of that piece. But this has resulted in female inmates being denied access to pre-release services or only having the ability to access those services with male prisoners at the same time. I'll read a little bit of a snippet from I thought a pretty instructive Baltimore Sun op-ed a year ago. There are no more excuses for a prison system to ignore women or lump them with men, especially now when, sadly, women make up more of the prison population than they once did. So this is about equity and fairness. It's about giving our women the same opportunities for success and for a productive post-incarceration lives as our male prisoners have. So with that, Mr. President, I'd like to just turn it over, or have the chairman of the capital budget, provide some explanation and background for how we might approach the actual construction of the facility.
The chairman yields to the chairman of the capital budget subcommittee.
Thank you, Mr. President. First of all, I want to thank the minority whip and the secretary who did call me to voice some concerns about the bill. It's normally a bill coming through JPR does not have capital implications, but in this case, I thought both of them made very valid points. But I do support my colleague, the chair of JPR, to override the veto. And he's already mentioned the key parts of the bill that are very important, but I want to just clarify some of the capital issues that were brought up. First of all, this bill was passed last year, so all the dates are tied to this year. So we're going to have to make some change there. And 2021, it says first we'd have to acquire the property in June and then construction for September of 2021. That doesn't happen in the capital budget. We all have projects, and there's a reason it's a 6-year cycle. You got to get planning money, you got to engineering money, construction money. So we're going to have to conform some of these issues to the capital budget, okay? The second thing is the secretary brought up some very good points about using local facilities. We need to check and see what's the availability of local facilities. We're all here to save money and try to be efficient. And so he brought up some points as well. Lastly, Mr. President, there are a lot of very positive things in this bill. And to take this bill out just because of the capital part, I don't think would be fair, and it's not really what we want to do here and have been doing. I was on the Justice Reinvestment Conference Committee. So with that, I know some people were alarmed about the capital ramifications. Don't be alarmed. The one thing about capital is it takes a long time. It's a process. It's a public process. But I think the bill's merits override the capital issues. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Senator from District 1. Good. Chair recognizes the Senator from District 1.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll my colleague here to my left kind of said what I said, but based on the chairman of the capital budget, evidently it's going to take 6 years to get this facility in place to be built, if I heard him right, because you got to go through the capital budget process. And if every 2 years we're going to look at the numbers, and Baltimore City right now I think has 25, Frederick's 19, so 2 years from now Frederick might be ahead of Baltimore City. That means we have to build another one in Frederick to accommodate what direction we want. Everybody wants the best thing for these people, and a pre-release is kind of a step down scenario as I see it to get people ready to get out in the community. I know the Secretary's talked to 14 counties who have facilities available for them to use, and work with the department to have this, and we're moving away from the pre-release for men and going to do the step downs back in the communities where I think most people would want to go. They know the people, they know the area, and it would be better for them to be able to work their way back into the community by being there instead of a pre-release facility, we'll call it, somewhere else in the state when they could be back in their own county, their own town, doing the same thing. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator. We'll go to Senator from Prince George's, followed by the bill sponsor. Senator from Prince George's.
Thank you, Mr. President. Could the chair of the committee please stand?
The floor leader for the bill yield to a question.
I just need to ask a question.
Senator may proceed.
Yes, yes. How many women pre-release centers are open at this point in time?
Absolutely zero. The last one closed in 2009.
They don't have any?
They don't.
Well, for heaven's sake. Now, could you also tell me how many pre-release centers are open for men? They're closed too?
No, in the latest research that I had was 5 were open for men.
5 for the men?
5 were open.
And 0 for the women?
0 for the women.
Is that what I heard you say?
That's correct, Senator,
oh,
yes.
My. Well, we're talking about gender. We're talking about equity and fairness.
That's right.
We're talking about. Is that what we're talking about here?
That's absolutely right. Yes,
okay.
Senator.
Thank you very much.
Couldn't have said it better.
Thank you, Senators.
Thank
All right. If the bill sponsor would just give us one moment. I missed the senator from the other side, Senator from District 6, followed by the bill sponsor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Knowing that they've had wraparound services to help out anyone, and knowing that they don't have any facilities for the women, you know, it is discouraging. It is very discouraging to hear that. And every person should have some type of help for as a person being in any way, shape, or form being pre-released in prison. They need that every part of wraparound services. Pre-release to work, pre-release to get an understanding about the changes as long as they've been in their community. Getting a better understanding of freedom and getting back in the community to be a good part of that. And I just think, you know, continuing on to build is not benefiting. I think continuing to build in ways inside them, in their heart and in their mind, and making sure that wraparound services fit the need is very important. And that's why I believe that holding and sustaining the veto is very important. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes the bill sponsor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Overriding this veto, colleagues, is our opportunity to address more than a decade of inequity and broken promises and missed opportunity. And I have to say, the assertion that they're closing the 5 pre-release units for men remind me back when they desegregated the pools. In my community, rather than desegregate, they poured concrete into them. So let's put a face and some numbers to what we have before us. The governor and supporters of his veto of SB 684 say it's about the money. At least that's what they said in the letter. So let's do some math. Let's look at an inmate. Maybe it's Carol. She's from Harford County. She's serving 10 years because she got caught up in some drug charges and some selling with her boyfriend. According to the Vera Institute of Justice, incarceration costs an average of $31,000 to $60,000 a year. So for the sake of argument, let's say it's $40,000 in Maryland. So the state has invested $400,000 in keeping Carol locked up. Now the department says it will cost about $12 million, that's what they said in their report, to build a women's pre-release center, not a prison, a center, a school, a center, a place for them to transition. It's not probation. They have not completed their time. So when the bill was passed, the General Assembly, there were about 120 women eligible for pre-release, again, not probation. And currently, there are about 90, but I guess they're saying there are about 100 women like Carol. So when we build this pre-release center, this community center, over the course of 10 years, it could serve 1,000 women. So using our $40,000 a year, over 10 years, the state of Maryland has spent $40 million to lock up 1,000 women like Carol, away from opportunity, to pay a debt, and hopefully to be rehabilitated. So surely, colleagues, if we are willing to spend $400,000 to keep Carol behind bars, we should not balk at spending $120,000 to ensure her productive return to society. Overriding this veto is the right thing to do, and it is also the smart thing to do. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Question before the Senate is, shall Senate Bill 684 pass notwithstanding the objections of the Chief Executive? A green vote overrides the governor's veto. A red vote will sustain. Any further discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 32 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 684 passes, notwithstanding the objections of the Chief Executive. The clerk will read the message.
message to the House of Delegates by the Majority Leader. Ladies and gentlemen of the House of Delegates, the Senate today, notwithstanding the objections of the governor, voted to override the veto on Senate Bill 684. Said bill is sent to you for your consideration by order Nicole M. Alexander.
The message having been read is now adopted. The clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 1065, Senator King, Economic Development, Baltimore Symphony Orchestra, Funding and Reporting.
All right, question before the Senate is, shall Senate Bill 1065 pass, notwithstanding the objections of the Chief Executive? Chair recognizes the floor leader, Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. If you recall, in 2019, the BSO was in dire financial shape with a severe cash flow problem. And after ongoing meetings, the General Assembly took action and passed legislation that had two critical elements. The first was to provide immediate additional funding for the purpose of stabilizing the situation. And the second was to require the formation of a work group that was charged with making very specific recommendations on how to create long-term financial stability, develop new audiences, and increase and diversify statewide participation. We were very lucky that former B&T Chairman Senator Ed Casemeyer agreed to chair the work group, and as we knew he would, Ed immediately went to work. One of the recommendations of Senator Casemeyer's work group is key to the long-term financial stability of the BSO, and it is a limited financial commitment from the state. Senate Bill 1065 requires the governor to include annual appropriations in the state budget for the Baltimore Symphony Orchestra for an additional 5 years, from fiscal 2022 through 2026. The required amount scales down as follows: $1.5 million in fiscal 2022, $1.3 million in fiscal 2023, and $1.1 million in 2024, $0.9 million in fiscal 25, and $0.7 million in 26. The bill establishes a related financial reporting requirement for the BSO for 5 years, beginning in 2022. There are no amendments, and I would ask your support for this override.
Thank you, Senator. All right, are there any further discussion? If not, the question is, shall the bill pass notwithstanding the objections of the Chief Executive? A green vote will override the governor's veto. A red vote will sustain. If there's no further discussion, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 32 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 1065 shall pass, notwithstanding the objections of the Chief Executive. The clerk will read the message.
Message to the House of Delegates by the Majority Leader. Ladies and gentlemen of the House of Delegates, the Senate today, notwithstanding the objections of the Governor, voted to override the veto on Senate Bill 1065. Said bill is sent to you for your consideration by order Nicole M. Alexander.
Senator, the message having been read is now adopted. If there's no objection, let's do the third readers while we have everybody. If we could do a quorum call before third reading calendar.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their presence? Madam Secretary, could we ring the bells, please? Oh, never mind. We should be good. All right. The clerk will take the call. With 47 members in the chamber and a quorum being present, the Senate of Maryland remains in session. We're going to move to Senate third reading calendar number 6. Number 6. The clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 13, Senator Eckhart, Certified Nursing Assistant Certificate Renewal Training Program Requirements.
Senate Bill 13 is on third reader for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 13, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 40, Senator Peters, Higher Education, Richard W. Collins III, Leadership with Honor Scholarship, Bowie State.
Senate Bill 40 is on third reader for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 40, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 56, Senator Eckhart, Maryland Medical Assistance Program, Psychiatrist and Psychiatric Nurse Practitioner, Telemedicine Reimbursement Sunset Termination.
Senate Bill 56 is on third reader for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 56, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 65, Senator Kelly, Electricity, Renewable Energy, Portfolio Standard, Qualifying Biomass.
Senate Bill 65 is on third reader for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 32 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 65, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 96, Senator McCray, Public Health, Behavioral Health Programs, and Healthcare Facilities, Safety and Community Relations Plans.
Senate Bill 96 is on third reader for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 96, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 104, Senator Bailey, Public and Non-Public Schools, Electric Retractable Room Partitions, Operation Requirements.
Senate Bill 104 is on third reader for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 104, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 155, Senator Washington, Higher Education, Tuition Exemption for Foster Care Recipients and Homeless Youth, Alterations and Reports.
Senate Bill 155 is on third reader for final passage. Chair recognizes the senator on this bill, District 34.
Hey, Mr. President. I've been working with colleagues on the committee to try to understand this, but I would request that we just special order it if we could. Give me more of an opportunity to try to understand my questions. Thank you.
Senators move to special order the bill. The chair recognizes the floor leader. Senator from the bill sponsor.
It's fine. It's a good day.
Committee has no objections. If there are no objections, all in favor of the special order say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The bill will be special ordered to the appropriate time tomorrow. All right. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 167, Senator West, State Board of Social Work Examiners, temporary license to practice social work.
Senate Bill 167 is on third reader for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 167, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 170, Chair of Finance Committee, Transportation-Related Property, Prohibited Acts, and Enforcement.
Senate Bill 170 is on third reader for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 170, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 215, Senator Kelly, Maryland Department of Health, Birth Registration, Gestational Carriers.
Senate Bill 215 is on third reader for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 215, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 226, Chair Finance Committee, Maryland Insurance Administration, delivery of notices and other communications by electronic means.
Senate Bill 226 is on third reader for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 226, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 235, Chair Finance Committee, Major Information Technology Development Project Fund, use of funds.
Senate Bill 235 is on third reader for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 235, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 298, Senator Riley, State Board of Pharmacy, Pharmacy Closure, Notice to Customers, the Dennis Robin Act.
Senate Bill 298 is on third reader for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 298, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 313, Senator Washington, Maryland Department of Health, Public Health Outreach Programs, Cognitive Impairment, Alzheimer's Disease, and other types of dementia.
Senate Bill 313 is on third reader for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 47 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 313, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. All right, Senators, we have a little bit of work left. We've got a little bit of time. Let's try and do one report. We may not get through everything today. We'll do the best we can. Let's go ahead and do, let's see the largest one here. Let's do Education, Health, and Environmental Affairs. This is report number 6 from the committee. If the clerk could read the first bill on calendar number 6.
Senate Bill 82, Senator Augustine, State Board of Professional Counselors and Therapists, Maryland Music Therapists Act, favorable with 2 amendments.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 43rd District as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 82 establishes a certification for Maryland music therapists. The bill requires individuals to be licensed with the State Board, professional counselors, and therapists. It creates and establishes the Music Therapist Advisory Committee within the board. There are 2 committee amendments. One is technical. The second places music therapists under the Board of Examiners for audiologists, hearing aid dispensers, speech-language pathologists, and renames the board to the Board of Examiners for audiologists, hearing aid dispensers, speech-language pathologists, and music therapists. The amendment removes Music Advisory Committee and instead adds 2 licensed music therapist seats to the board. The amendment also removes the sunset review and permits the board to disseminate music therapy information. It passed the committee unanimously, so we ask for your acceptance of the amended bill.
The floor leader moves for the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. Questions on the 2 committee amendments? Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The amendments are adopted. Question now is on the favorable committee report as amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 82 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 227, Senator Elfrith, Water Pollution, Stormwater Management Regulations, and Watershed Implementation Plans. Review and update, favorable with 3 amendments.
Senator from the 29th District? Oh, from Baltimore and Howard counties.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 227 looks to update our stormwater management regulations and watershed implementation plans, or WIPs. As amended, SB 227 requires the Maryland Department of Environment to review, update specified stormwater management regulations and criteria at least once every 5 years to incorporate the most recent precipitation data available. The bill also requires MDE to submit a climate load allocation addendum to the Chesapeake Bay Total Maximum Daily Load Phase 3 Watershed Implementation Plan, as well as updated 2-year milestones to the U.S. EPA by December 31st, 2025. There are 3 committee amendments. The first is technical. Committee amendment number 2 strikes language that would have required the department to propose an update to stormwater regulations on or before January 1st, 2022, and instead requires MDE to report to the General Assembly on or before November 1st, 2021, regarding precipitation data and the department's plans for updating certain stormwater regulations. The amendment also adds a definition for the term of precipitation data. Number 3 expands the list of stakeholders with whom the department must consult when developing stormwater regulations and clarifies that the department may not delay the implementation of new stormwater requirements or standards developed under the bill. Move the committee amendments and the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of 3 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. Questions first is on the amendments. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The amendments are adopted. Question now is on the favorable committee report as amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 227 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 249, Senator Bailey, Higher Education Senatorial Scholarships Program Accreditation. Favorable. This is an emergency bill.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 38th District as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. This emergency bill, SB 249, allows a senatorial scholarship to be used at an out-of-state institution when an academic area is not offered at an accredited program in the state. Specifically, the program must be accredited by a national accrediting association approved by the U.S. Department of Education. There are no committee amendments, no fiscal impact, and it passed the committee unanimously. I ask to move the report favorably.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report. Chair recognizes the senator from the 45th District. What purpose does Senator rise?
Thank you, Mr. President. On the bill, I had a question.
Will the floor leader yield to a question?
Absolutely.
Senator may proceed.
I wasn't clear. I thought that this provision had already existed in reference to health scholarships.
Correct. The difference is that current law and regulations do not specify that the in-state program must be accredited. So this legislation, this bill, would allow, requires it to be accredited. So that's the only change.
Thank you.
All right. Any further discussion? If not, question is on the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 249 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 278, Senator Kagan, Maryland Department of Education and Maryland Department of Health, Maryland School-Based Health Center Standards, Telehealth. Favorable. This is an emergency bill.
Chair recognizes the Vice Chair of the Committee as the floor leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Last year, this body unanimously passed telehealth bills on an emergency basis so that people, especially during COVID, could still get health care and connect with their health care providers. Many of you, and certainly many of your constituents, have appreciated and taken advantage of that opportunity. Unfortunately, our students in low-income areas and rural areas don't have that opportunity. This emergency bill would allow them to continue to get access to health care for primary care, behavioral health care, and dental care. There were no committee amendments. I move the bill.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion on the report? If not,
Mr. President?
Yes.
35.
Chair recognizes Senator from the 35th District. Thank you,
Thank you, Mr. President. We had this in committee voting session, a lengthy committee voting session on, well, the debate on this bill was lengthy Friday evening. And this morning I had several colleagues that approached me with some different questions on this. So I kindly ask to special order this to a later date.
Senators move to special order the bill to an appropriate time. Does the Senator have a time in mind?
Mr. President, I'm not too great. You're the man on the calendar, so I would assume
tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Let's see where we are tomorrow, and we'll take it. Any objections?
Or possibly Friday. Thank you.
Excellent. Okay, so we'll see where we are tomorrow. If there are no objections to the Senator's special order, we'll, without objection, so ordered. The bill will be special ordered to the appropriate time tomorrow. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 308, Senator Ellis, Higher Education, Maryland Community College Promise Scholarship Revisions. Favorable with 2 amendments.
Chair recognizes the bill sponsor as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, as we know, during this COVID pandemic, quite a few of our citizens are experiencing unemployment issues. Looking at a lot of the service industries, restaurant industry, quite a bit of the workers in that industry are laid off. Fortunately, we have our community colleges in Maryland who offer lots of job training, retraining programs to help folks who are looking for additional employment. This bill, Senate Bill 308, makes it easier for individuals who've been out of high school for a while to get the Promise Scholarship to take classes at our community colleges. The committee recommendation is favorable with 2 amendments. This bill, as amended, expands eligibility for the Maryland Community College Promise Scholarship by waiving the grade point average requirement for an initial award for those applicants who graduated from high school 5 years or more before applying for the scholarship. There are 2 committee amendments. Amendment number 1 makes changes to the purpose paragraph and a short title. Amendment number 2 strikes the bill as drafted and adds a provision waiving the grade point average requirement for an initial award for applicants who graduated from high school 5 or more years before applying for the scholarship. Mr. President, I move for adoption of the 2 committee amendments and a favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. Question is on the amendments. Any discussion on the amendments? All in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the favorable committee report as amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 308 is hereby ordered printed for 3rd reader. Senators, we're going to do one last calendar, and then I think we're going to pause for the day so that there's time before committees for folks to eat. And we're going to do the judicial proceedings calendar. This is calendar number 5. It's just 4 short bills, and we have some time blocked out tomorrow so we can run these over into tomorrow. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 7 Simon-Era, Court Dog Therapy Program, Veterans Treatment. Favorable with 2 amendments.
Chair recognizes
Mr. President.
Senator from the 27th District is the floor leader.
Yes, Mr. President, Senate Bill 7
was passed out of committee favorable with 2 amendments. The bill, as amended, renames the Court Dog and Child Witness Program to the Court Dog Program and expands the voluntary program to any participating circuit court or district court locations that offers a veterans treatment court program. Committee amendments are amendment number one is technical. Amendment number 2 renames the program the Court Dog Program and alters the definition of veteran. The stated purpose of expanding the program is to provide a facility dog or therapy dog to a veteran who's participating in a veterans treatment court proceedings or related court process or meeting in the state, including a status review with a judge or magistrate, 2, a meeting with an attorney, 3, a meeting with a probation, pretrial, or court case manager. The administrative office of the courts must establish applicable procedures as specified. Participation in the program is voluntary. Veteran means a person who served on active duty in the United States Uniformed Services other than for training and was not dishonorably discharged or released. Veterans Treatment Court means a court-supervised, comprehensive, and voluntary treatment-based program. Mr. President, I ask that we move the adoption of the 2 amendments, committee amendments, and then the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor Leader moves that we adopt the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. Question first is on the amendments. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the favorable committee report as amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 7 is hereby ordered printed for 3rd reader. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 14, Senator Kelly, compensation to individual erroneously convicted, sentenced, and confined, the Walter Lomax Act, favorable with 8 amendments.
Chair recognizes the chair of the committee as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. And amidst all of the acrimony and struggle in the Judicial Proceedings Committee over a number of contentious issues, I'm happy to report that Senate Bill 14, the compensation to individuals erroneously convicted, sentenced, and confined, the Walter Lomax Act, passed out of our committee unanimously. You'll remember that we actually had a pretty significant floor fight over this bill for about an hour last session. And taking some of Senator from Harper County's suggestions and working with the chair of finance over the interim, we produced this product before you. So as amended, this bill makes several changes to existing provisions pertaining to payments by the Board of Public Works to an individual erroneously convicted, sentenced, and confined under state law for a crime the individual did not commit. Among other things, the bill modifies procedures and criteria for eligibility, including requiring an administrative law judge in the Office of Administrative Hearings to make specified findings related to eligibility for compensation. The bill applies retroactively to any applicant, any application for compensation or benefits pending or after the bill's effective date, and must be construed to allow a person to apply for modification of compensation awarded by BPW between January 1st of 1984 and July 1st of 2005. So there are 8 amendments. Amendment 1 adds co-sponsors the entire committee. Amendment number 2 is technical. Amendment number 3 makes stylistic changes to clarify the compensation awarded for the time spent incarcerated subsequent to the conviction for which the ALJ determines there is clear and convincing evidence. Amendment number 4 adds language to clarify the benefits awarded are from the state. Amendment number 5 adds language expressly requiring that a request for compensation be filed with the Office of Administrative Hearings and specifying the required caption for the request of the compensation. Amendment number 6 clarifies deadlines for the request for compensation. Amendment number 7 allows for an administrative law judge to recommend an expedited payment schedule in order granting the request for relief. Amendment number 8 modifies provisions allowing for individuals who were previously awarded compensation to apply for the modification of that compensation consistent with the bill as drafted. And with that, Mr. President, sorry to read, it was a lot, but this is a fairly significant bill and a committee product that I'm eminently proud of, and I just want to commend the committee and Senator, the Chair of Finance, for her hard work, and for your hard work over this, and for Mr. Walter Lomax, who has been a champion and an advocate for this piece of legislation since his release. And so with that, Mr. President, I move for the adoption of the favorable committee report and the 8 amendments.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman moves to the adoption of the 8 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. Question first is on the amendments. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The 8 committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the favorable committee report as amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report as amended say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 14 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. And if folks remember, last year it was Mr. Lomax who came and testified and had a cardiac event in the chamber. And the Sergeant at Arms and I had the opportunity to see him in the hospital that evening where he was awake, which was remarkable. And his one thing he said was, please make sure to get this bill done. So I want to thank the committee for its hard work to get it to a place where we should be pretty proud of this work product. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 220, Senator Heddleman, Criminal Law, Hate Crimes, Protected Groups and Penalties, favorable with 2 amendments.
Chair recognizes the bill sponsor as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, Senate Bill 220 alters the list of protected classes under the existing hate crime statutes to include gender-related identity as defined under the current law. The bill also authorizes a sentencing court to order a person convicted of a hate crime to complete an anti-bias education program, and it requires the University System of Maryland to develop an anti-bias education program relevant to the hate crimes statute. There are 2 committee amendments. The first amendment is technical. The second amendment alters the provisions relating to the list of protected classes under the existing statute. It alters provisions relating to a court's order that a person complete an anti-bias education program, and it alters the provisions relating to the development of an anti-bias education program. Mr. President, I move for the adoption of the amendments and for a favorable report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. Question first is on the amendments. Chair recognizes the minority leader.
Thank you. I'd like a little chance to look at the amendments. I'd like to lay the bill over under the rules, please.
The senator's motion's in order. The bill will be laid over under the rule. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 236, Senator Heddleman, Maryland Commission on Civil Rights, Employment Discrimination Reporting, favorable with 2 amendments.
Chair recognizes the sponsor of the bill as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, Senate Bill 236 requires specific counties to annually submit information to the Maryland Commission on Civil Rights regarding employment discrimination complaints, and MCCR must include that data and associated recommendations in its reports. There are 2 committee amendments. The first one is technical. The second one is clarifying in nature, just specifies that each county office of civil rights or appropriate agency shall report that information to MCCR. I move for the favorable adoption of the 2 amendments and for a favorable report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. Questions on the amendments? Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the favorable committee report as amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 236 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. All right, Senators, we did some really contentious and good work today. Thank you all. Thank you. This is the Senate at its best. We're going to go ahead and special order, if there's no objection, special order the rest of the calendars to the appropriate time tomorrow. We have that, Madam Secretary. We'll move it as unfinished business, right. So we don't need to special order it. Let's do announcements. Let's start with the Chair of Finance.
Thank you, Mr. President. Bill hearings will start at 1:30, so rush, guys, so you can get some lunch and get there. And we will begin voting about 30 minutes after the end of the bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chair recognizes the Chair of Education, Health, and Environmental Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. President. We too will start at 1:30 for bill hearings, and at the conclusion of bill hearings, or 15 minutes at the after the conclusion of bill hearings, the Health Subcommittee will be meeting through Zoom.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes the Chair of Budget and Taxation.
Thank you, Mr. President. We'll have full committee budget hearings with appropriations at 1:30. At 3, the Capital Budget Subcommittee will meet, and at 4:30 we'll have voting.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chair recognizes the Chair of Judicial Proceedings.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Judicial Proceedings Committee will meet at 1:30 for bill hearings, followed by a work session on police reform. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. All right. Any further announcements? Delegations? Chair recognizes the co-chair of the Protocol Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to draw your attention to a small note that was left on your desk this morning. The Protocol Committee is trying to encourage a little bit of fun this week. If you can bring your note back tomorrow, that would be great. You can drop it off with either myself or the good senator on the other side of the room, my co-chair. Thank you.
Thank you. The Chair recognizes the other co-chair of the Protocol Committee.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. It's the beginning of the week, so it's time to say hello to our student pages of the week. Remember, they're out there. We have 21 wonderful pages from about 17 districts, and they will be participating with us all virtually. And next week, hopefully in the beginning of the week, we'll be able to put their little faces up there on the board so you can begin to recognize your pages from your areas. But on Friday, we will say goodbye to them. And starting next week, they will be starting to rotate back in for their second week of their experience here. These are some of our brightest and best students here in Maryland, and we are so appreciative of them, but we really miss seeing them and getting to interact with them personally on the floor. So make a contact with your page from your area, and we will be hearing more from them on Friday. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you so much, Senator. And they are watching. They are watching. We've been getting notes, so they are watching very, very closely, despite not being here. Any further announcements? Chair recognizes the Senator from the Middle Eastern Shore.
Thank you very much for the Women's Caucus. Ladies, it's easy to get onto the Women's Caucus now because it's all virtual, so we're having a great attendance from our senators. So we will hear a vaccine update tomorrow. So please be sure to tune in at 9 o'clock. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Vaccines all day, every day. Any further announcements? Chair recognizes, nope. All right, let's do a quorum call before adjournment. Madam Clerk.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their presence? If so, the clerk will take the call. With 47 senators in the chamber and a quorum being present, the Senate of Maryland remains in session. The chair recognizes the majority leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate of Maryland stand adjourned until Wednesday, February 10th at 10 a.m.
Without objection, so ordered. Stay safe, wear your mask, and get your vaccine.